Finding ordered pair solutions of equations. In this example, we're asked to graph y equals x squared minus 4. Now this is nothing more than a parabola that has been shifted down 4 units if you were to use the translation method to graph it. But here, let's go ahead and graph it by plotting ordered pairs, which is another method you can use. And with this method, all you're doing is just plugging in some values for x to see what you get out for y. So into the given equation, if we remove the x and replace it with the -2, which by the way, I just randomly listed some variables that we can plug in for x. You can choose whatever variables you like. So plugging in a -2, that's going to be -2 squared, which is going to give me 4. And then 4 take away 4 equals 0. So when you plug in a -2, what you get out is a 0. Next, let's plug in a -1 for x. -1 squared equals 1, and 1 minus 4 equals -3. So that means when you plug in a -1, what you get out is a -3. Next, we want to plug in a 0 for x. When we plug in a 0 for x, 0 squared equals 0, and 0 minus 4 will still be -4. So when you plug in a 0 for x, what you get out for y is a -4. Now we're going to plug in a 1 for x. 1 squared equals 1, and 1 minus 4 equals -3. So when we plug in a 1 for x, what we get out for y is a -3. Notice this one is similar to the one of -1, -3. It's similar to when we plugged in a -1. Because this is a parabola will have similar points on each side of the parabola. So let's continue. The last point we want to plug in is a 2. When you remove the x and replace it with 2, you're going to have 2 squared. 2 squared equals 4, and 4 take away 4 will leave me with 0. So when we plug in a 2, what we get out for y is a 0, which again is similar to the other side. When we plugged in a -2, we got out a 0. Plugging in a +2, we get out a 0. And so on the next page, we're going to graph, and I want to show you how these two sides relate to each other. But yes, there's the other method here of simply finding what we call ordered pair solutions, and then using those ordered pairs to graph our lines. So let's look at graphing or plotting these points. So I'm going to go ahead and plot the first one. The first one is over -2 and stay at 0. The other point we found was over -1 and down 3. The other point was 0 and down 4. Over 1 and down 3. And notice that's what happens with a parabola. You'll have the vertex or the line of symmetry of the parabola, but on each side you will have points that are similar. On one of them, we went over -1 and down 3. On the other side, we went over 1 and down 3. And so that's how they are similar. And then this last point is also similar to the one to the left. When we started, we went over -2 and stayed at 0. That last point there is over 2 and stay at 0. And that we have enough points now to go ahead and graph our line. Once we graph our line, that is our parabola. So again, we graphed this line using ordered pair solutions. So first you want to plug in some ordered pairs, get enough ordered pairs to where you can be able to determine or sketch the graph. And here, this particular graph was a parabola. Now, in the upcoming sections, I'm going to show you a much quicker way to graph this by simply using transformation and graphing the graph of x squared. But then, because you have that -4 there, you would move it down 4 units, and you can graph it without even having to plot ordered pairs. But yes, this particular lesson was about graphing by finding ordered pair solutions and then plotting those ordered pairs to where you can sketch your graph.